welcome back, everybody, to another power ranking video here at I'm Not a Coach. I'm your host, Dave Huerta. Thank you so much for joining us for our second power ranking video of the season. And man, what a freaking week it was. Week 9 started out on Thursday, Texans, Jets. Obviously, the Jets got a big win. And then it continued on to a crazy Sunday. A lot of games, some blowouts, some very close calls. Unfortunately, a heartbreaking loss for my Green Bay Packers. But hey, we're going to get the bye. We're going to get rested up. We're going to get Jordan Love back and healthy. And that offense is going to start humming. It's going to meet the expectations that we had. That's what I'm expecting. And then obviously yesterday, Buccaneers putting in the work, trying to do their best to knock off the undefeated Kansas City Chiefs, taking them all the way into overtime without Chris Godwin, without Mike Evans, without McMillan, and a bunch of other guys. But unfortunately, and maybe fortunately if you're a Chiefs fan, the Chiefs got it done in overtime, able to just drive it down the field slowly, methodically, and of course the inevitable touchdown to put the game away and to go 8-0 almost halfway through the season. And the Kansas City Chiefs are very close, very, very close to doing something that I wouldn't say close. Obviously, we still have a long season to go, but I mean, they're halfway there, man. An undefeated season. The last time we saw this was back in 2007 with the New England Patriots. Obviously, they made it to the Super Bowl, came one win away from perfection. But the Chiefs are chasing something even bigger than that. Not just perfection in one season, back-to-back Super Bowl titles. They would be the first team since the Bills in the early 90s to make it to 3 Super Bowls. But once again, that is far down the road, but we'll see. Anyway, let's get started with these power rankings. First, we're going to do some honorable mentions. Once again, just kind of how I do these. If your team was on a bye this week, you're not going to be on the power ranking. So no Pittsburgh, no 49ers, things like that. And on top of that, I do take into account the few weeks leading up to this week. So it's not just a single week that I'm ranking. Otherwise, who knows, the Panthers could be in this one. So Still talking about what you did basically the last couple of weeks and what you might look like heading into the future. So mostly the stock is kind of where they are right now, what they've looked like, and we'll talk a little bit about some of these teams, what their schedule might look like over the next couple of weeks. So, but once again, these are power rankings, man. These are mostly just for debate, just to have some conversation. If you think they suck, they probably do. But if you think they're awesome, thank you, man. Thank you. I worked hard. I worked so hard. But anyway, so let's get started with some honorable mentions. So I'm just going to go put these right on the screen right away. We're going to do some quick thoughts on these teams. Once again, these are not teams that I believe that are going to be necessarily going to be Super Bowl contenders, who I think they're, some of these are going to be guys some teams that I like just based on what they've played the last couple of weeks, things like that. Maybe to keep an eye on some of them and things like that. So let's start out with, actually, let's do these a little bit one at a time here. Let's not go too crazy. So starting with the San Diego Chargers. This team, and people in the other teams in the honorable mention, not in particular order, but starting with the Chargers, this team, some weeks they look like a top 10 team, borderline top 8. And then there are times where I'm like, oh, they're definitely not going to be making the playoffs. And yeah, this team is just, it's a mystery to me, man. They have pieces. Quentin Johnston is looking phenomenal, the receiver that they had, that they drafted last year. He had a rough rookie season. Some fans were saying, oh, we got to bench him, got to trade him, or something like that. I think that's obviously a little crazy, but he's looking a lot better. Justin Herbert is kind of up and down, but for the most part, he's been very, very solid, almost very good. And I think the biggest issue that this team has is depth. Depth at the wide receiver, depth at the offensive line, who is solid, but nowhere near where you would want them to be for the quarterback that you have. J.K. Dobbins, the running back, he's playing a little bit better over the last couple of weeks. Had a very good Sunday. But once again, you're looking for more consistent production from him, a little bit more explosive, especially as your number one back. And on top of that, you don't have too many phenomenal options after him. So once again, depth being an issue with this offense. The defense, maybe another draft, and I think they would be maybe pretty solid. They do certain things well, but they are just kind of middle of the road to below average, not super dominant. But I think, once again, it's only been one draft for Harbaugh. We've seen what he can do with certain teams. So I'm expecting something a little bit in the next couple seasons. But this season, who knows? Maybe they'll squeak in. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is a team I have a little bit of a soft spot. There's basically always one or two teams that I feel like they're almost going to be in the middle. They're just going to possibly miss the playoffs, and I think that's what Tampa is going to do this season. They have a really tough schedule. They have lost, I think, 2 or 3 already in games in the division, so it's going to be very tough. They have so many injuries. We talked about it. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, continuing to lose some offensive linemen. I think they lost one in that game. I think he did come back, but yeah, man, you can tell this team is just not where you would want them to be. It's not where they were in the first couple of weeks of the season when they were looking phenomenal. Baker, he didn't play terribly in this Chiefs game. I think he played honestly amazing. I think he almost out quarterbacked Mahomes, but it's a whole nother thing. The defense, they can get pressure, man. They have playmakers. That front seven is solid. I think their secondary is underperforming, but we'll see where they land. Maybe they can get some of these guys back, and especially some of the younger guys can maybe get elevated. I'm still hoping that running back, one of those 3 running backs that they have, whether it's Tucker, Bucky Irving, Rashad White, they've all played well. All of them played pretty decently in that Chiefs game, especially Bucky and White. But I'm hoping these guys can eventually help a little bit more to offset some of the injuries that they have on offense. So we'll see. Next, we have a team who they continue to lose, but I have a soft spot for them, man. It's my AFC team here, the underdogs, the Miami Dolphins. I like their coaching staff. I like their players. Obviously, Tua, I think he's not only with his play, but I think with his toughness. I think he's endeared himself to some fans that are not necessarily Miami Dolphins fans. But I really want this team to succeed just for the will that you would want this team to be able to, they've drafted fairly decently. I think their coaching staff is one of the better teams, at least offensively. But I mean, if they're not winning, eventually these guys are just gonna get fired. I don't think Miami has too much patience, but yeah, man, I'm hoping this team can eventually get some wins. It's not looking like they're gonna make the playoffs. I think it's gonna be a little bit of a down season. I think that injury to Tua and everything else really kind of hurt them. But so we'll see what this Miami Dolphins team, but they've been competitive, man. Ever since Tua got back, they have been competitive. They've been in games within a touchdown, within a field goal, and I think they're going to continue to do that, man, as this offense gels a little bit more now with Tua back, and I think this defense has some playmakers, man. They have a decent secondary. I think their front seven is a little bit underrated. I think they need to be more consistent with their pressure, but I think they have a chance. All right. Next, the Arizona Cardinals. They are looking pretty solid right now. They have a favorable schedule. Right now they have gone 4-1 over the last 5 games. They have looked phenomenal. They've beaten the 49ers. They have beaten the Miami Dolphins, the Chicago Bears, and the Chargers. So The 49ers, Chargers, Bears, obviously those are teams kind of still kind of a little bit in the, one to maybe two games above 500, or some of these teams are exactly 500. But those are teams that have either great coaching, Chargers, or they have a very, very deep stable of teams like the 49ers. I think when they beat the 49ers, Niners were dealing with some injuries, but regardless, man, that's a well-coached team. Whatever you think about Kyle Shanahan and his choking, he's a dang good coach. I think that defense is darn good when it's healthy, when it plays to its potential, and that offense can be methodical. They can be explosive as well when everybody's healthy. And Cardinals were able to beat them. They're gonna face them up in next couple of weeks. We'll see how that goes. And the Bears, man, the Bears are a solid team. Cardinals able to just smack them this week, man, 29-9. It's not an easy thing to do with the defense that the Chicago has, the offense, the way they've been able to play the last couple of weeks. So watch out for the Cardinals. I think they're going to have a good amount of games over the next couple of weeks that they might be able to steal. So who knows? And they also in one of the weaker divisions in the NFC, so they have a pretty decent chance to compete. All right, so those were the honorable mentions, but you didn't come here for honorable mentions. You came here for the top 10 teams that I think are playing right now. So we're going to start out with the Los Angeles Rams. Yes, is this team under 500? Yes, they are. But over the last 2 weeks, they have been healthy, and they have gotten Puka Nacua back. They got Cooper Kupp back. And don't worry, the Cowboys are not on the top 10. But yeah, this team has been healthy, man. They got two of their biggest weapons back almost 2 weeks ago. They were able to beat the Vikings controversially, but still beat them. And then this week they came in with a big win. And on top of that, this team has won 3 straight games. So this team is once again in the weaker division in the NFC West. So they are not that far off from being number one. The Seahawks look like they're trending in the wrong direction. The 49ers are getting healthy, but I mean they're going to be out without one of their top weapons for the rest of the year. Their defense is still really good, but it could go either way, man. I think the 49ers are around 500 as well. I think they're 4-4. So, once again, the Rams are not that far off. If they can get on a run, if they can beat the 49ers in a couple weeks here, they can be in the driver's seat and really be able to push for a division title. So, and that offense is looking phenomenal. Even without Puka Nacua this week, who got ejected. I don't know exactly when it happened, but he did miss some time. But they were able to get Cooper Rush. They were able to get their other receiver who had a very nice game. I'm trying to remember his name. I think it's Robinson. He had a really good game as well. Matthew Stafford playing a clean game. That running back that they have back there, man, he continues to just churn out tough yardage. And I really like this team, man. The defense is getting better, but we'll see how they go. I think that defense might be the thing that's going to hold them back a little bit, but another draft or so, and we can see this Rams team kind of resurrect themselves after basically having to shed all that big money. They kind of dipped for a couple seasons. Obviously, they lost Aaron Donald, but I think the Rams are a team to watch, and they're going to have a very good opportunity to really push for this division title. I think it's between them and the 49ers. Seahawks, yes, they started out 3-0, but man, since then they have looked rough. And then the Cardinals, like I said, that's a team to watch, but still, I don't think they're as complete of a team as the Rams. All right, moving on to my number 9 team, and that is the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota obviously getting a big win this week and beating the Colts, and man, that defense looked phenomenal. You can say it was against a soon-to-be nearly 40-year-old quarterback in Flacco, an offense that stopped running the ball, that couldn't really run the ball that well, even with Jonathan Taylor, and those receivers were dropping passes left and right. The offensive line gave up, I think, 3 sacks, and there was a couple more pressures on Flacco as well. But I think that's a testament to, if you watch that game, the timing of the pressures when they threw extra guys in there was phenomenal. You could clearly tell Joe Flacco and that offense were not expecting those, so catching them off guard consistently in that game, and they just put the clamps on them, man. There was plenty of times where the Colts could have taken the lead and even pushed it into almost a double-digit lead at some point if they would have been able to score back to back. But that Vikings defense, man, had a couple weeks where they were looking a little rough, but they finally came back. They're looking a lot better. I think they used that extra, from Thursday to, the next Sunday. Might have gotten a little bit healthier. They were able to get something going defensively, and were able to make some adjustments. And, I mean, heck, man, going into November, they were looking really solid. Talking about the offense, Darnold, easily one of his biggest up and down games. Sometimes he looked like the Darnold that we saw the first month and a half, and then there were times where he definitely looked like the guy that was basically run out of New York, couldn't stick with the Panthers, couldn't stick with the 49ers. So, yeah, I think he finished with 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I think he might have lost a fumble as well. I'm not sure. But, yeah, that was a very up and down game for Darnold, and I think a little bit of that offense. But Jefferson, man, that dude, he was ready to play. He was not going to be stopped, man. That guy was running crisp routes. He was aggressive with the ball, getting to the ball. And that running game, even though it wasn't spectacular with Jones, Cam Akers came into that game and was the more effective back. I think Akers finished with nearly 8 yards per carry. Jones, I think, was closer to around 4, maybe less than that. So, yeah, man, if Cam Akers and Aaron Jones can ever be on the same frequency in the same game, it's going to be a tough. And then you got Jefferson, you got Addison, who can also light up a team, threaten the secondary, take the top off. It's going to be a tough offense to go, man, to really, really try to stop them. And I expect the Vikings to get better as the season goes on, and I think it's going to be a little bit of an upward trajectory. Hopefully I'm wrong. But yeah, man, it's going to be interesting how this team continues to improve after, losing 2 straight. So that is number 9. Next, there's going to be a little bit of a controversial pick. Some people are going to say, oh, of course, a Packer fan would put the Packers over the Vikings even on a week where the Vikings won and the Packers lost. Hear me out. So, talking about defenses, both these defenses, the Packers defense looked just as impressive to me as the Vikings. Did they get the sack numbers? No, but the Packers have not really racked up a whole lot of sacks this year. They're not, one of the worst in the NFL, but they're definitely not one of the top teams, getting there consistently. But that defense was able to hold the Detroit Lions to 17 points, take away the pick 6 that we'll talk about a little bit later here. But holding that offense, that explosive offense, they got receivers, they got 2 running backs who are absolute monsters. Plus you got Jared Goff throwing more touchdowns than incompletions, not interceptions, incompletions. And to be able to hold that offense consistently, there was a lot of punts. There was a lot of moments where you could tell the Lions were like, what the heck is going on here, man? What is going on? So, got to give it to the Packers defense. They made that game closer than it probably should have been. And now we're going to go to the other side of the ball. That is the thing that dropped them 2 spots here. And in my opinion, I was even thinking about putting them even lower than that. But I didn't want to overreact. I think this team is dealing with some injuries. Jordan Love is dealing with some injuries. Obviously, that's not an excuse, but it is a reason why this team, you can clearly tell, is not, especially the offense, is not really going to its potential. We've seen this team put up points in a hurry. Look at that Vikings game, down 28. Somehow they made it 29-31. And they scored most of those points before the last couple minutes of that game. So I think this offense can be explosive. I think they have the weapons. Most of these guys are still healthy enough to be playing, but you can clearly tell that their biggest driver, Jordan Love, is hobbled. They'll take the bye week, get healthy, and we'll see how it goes. But these receivers need to catch balls, man. Dontavian Wicks, I talked about it on the stream during that game. The amount of hype that this kid had coming into the season, and don't get me wrong, his route running, his separation, still amazing. Just phenomenal, man. You can clearly see it every single time he is throwing the ball. He has a bunch of separation. He's a great route runner. But man, dude, this guy needs to learn to catch the ball before trying to run. In these last couple ones, they were just drops, which is disheartening. But we've seen receivers in Green Bay have a rough second year. Devontae Adams had a rough one. Watson even had a little bit of a rougher compared to his rookie year. But once again, getting better. Hopefully they take the bye week to get, kind of get your mind off of football, really reset, and then come back, man. Don't put too much pressure on it. Just catch the ball. You were catching balls last year. You did it consistently last year. And when he does catch it, man, he looks amazing. So I think these guys just need to be able to kind of reset, let some pressure off of themselves, and just go out and ball. So there we go. That is the Green Bay Packers at number 8. Next, we have the Philadelphia Eagles, man. So, Philly is one of those teams where I feel like either in the next 2 to 3 games, maybe the next month, I should say, this team is either going to be in the top 5 because they've looked, they've beaten the teams that they're going to beat, this next coming, and they are going to continue to play better. Or the teams that they have beaten over the last couple of weeks have been against the Giants and the Bengals. Those are their biggest blowout wins. Otherwise, their wins have been really close. They barely beat the team that they should have just blown out in this one, I think, in my opinion, especially the way the offense was able to run. But, man, dude, this team is, right now, offensively, they look very dangerous. They have all their weapons healthy. All the receivers are good. Their running back, Saquon, is doing things that I've never seen done on a football field. And yes, I'm talking about the backwards hurdle. So, and then also Jalen Hurts not turning the ball over, being very, not just cautious, not necessarily cautious, just being smart with the ball. Still throwing it deep down the field. But some of those big mistakes that we saw early this season and late last season have been cleaned up. And you can tell if they would have done that last year, they would beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the playoffs. Probably. I mean, it was still a blowout win for Tampa Bay, but I think if the Philadelphia Eagles were playing to their potential, I think that game is not only a lot closer, I think Philly wins and makes a run. So I think Sirianni somehow this guy just, every time he's like on the brink of getting fired, he just pulls 2, 3, 4 wins out of his butt, So, but I got to give it to that coaching staff. I got to give it to the players, man. It was easy. You could have easily been like, oh, we're done. We don't like the coach. We don't like this. He's fighting with the fans on the sideline while we're winning, things like that. But they pulled it together, man, and our offense is looking good. Their defense still needs to play a lot better. They're giving up a decent amount of points consistently, but they've invested a lot of draft capital in that defense. A lot of first-round picks, a lot of second-round picks, especially on that front end. They put a lot of time in, especially this past draft, in that secondary to really change a lot of things. They let a lot of guys go, and they brought in a bunch of new guys. So it might be taking a little bit of time to kind of get gelled up together. But if they can do it on defense, if those young guys can really meet where the veterans are, this team has a chance to be one of the final four, in my opinion. So, but we'll see. It's Philly. It can all fall apart real quick. Let me see here. And on top of that, the reason they're not in the top five, their schedule is going to be tougher in the next couple weeks. So these next 3 or 4 games are really going to define who this Philly team actually is. Like I said, their previous couple wins have been against some easier teams, some teams that have losing records. The Jags, things like that. So we're going to see how this team competes the next couple weeks. If they can have a positive, if they can go 3-1, 4-0, then I think we're going to be seeing a Philly team heading into the playoffs with a lot of confidence. All right, next we have the Atlanta Falcons at number 6 here. So the reason I have the Falcons over the other bird team, the Eagles, was just the strength of schedule. So the Falcons have gone 5-1 in their last 6. They have looked phenomenal. And even though the teams that they have beaten have not been, it's not like the Kansas City Chiefs or the Ravens or anything like that. But the reason I have them over is I think they have the best opportunity of any of the NFC teams right now to potentially win the division before even December hits. And I'll tell you why. So they have already played 4 of their 6 division games. They have faced the Saints once, the Panthers once, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers twice. They are 4-0 in those games. They have yet to lose. And their remaining games are going to be against the Saints and the Panthers. I don't think I need to explain it, but yeah, those are teams that are probably going to be competing for the first overall pick this year. Panthers for the 3rd time in 3 years. So Atlanta has a very good opportunity to go 6-0 in their division. So automatically, they're probably going to win the division, automatically going to be in the top 4 in the playoffs. Are they going to compete for the number 1 seed? Probably not. Definitely not. I think that's either going to be to the Lions, maybe the Commanders. But, I mean, they're going to be in there for sure. So this team has an opportunity to finish division winners, get a home game in the playoffs, all before most likely even mid-December hits. So I like what they're doing on offense, man. I've been able to stream a couple of their games over the last month and a half, and they have weapons, man. They don't have the big names of like the Philadelphia Eagles or even the notoriety of the Vikings or the Packers in terms of the receiving core, but they got some weapons, man. And Darnell Mooney, very, very small guy, man, but he balls out. Drake London, we'll see if he's going to be healthy enough to come back, but he looked pretty solid over the last couple of weeks. He seems to be getting better and better with Kirk Cousins. And now those running backs, man, Tyler Algier, Bijan Robinson, sometimes they have games where they don't really show up, but when they're able to get it going, they are a very tough duo. And Bijan is just a great back to have in the passing game as well. He's a big threat. If they can get Kyle Pitts at any point to be a threat anywhere on the field, as long as they throw it to him, I guess, I think that offense is going to open up a little bit more. But I don't know, man. Kyle Pitts does not seem to be a priority for getting the ball. Anyway, after that, their defense, I think their defense has been pretty darn solid, man. It's nothing spectacular, but they can put pressure on you in a hurry. We saw that this past week against Dallas, and granted, Dallas's offensive line is not great, but we've seen, hey, look at the Packers. They played some below average offensive lines and still can't record more than a sack or maybe a sack and a half. But yeah, man, it's I think this Falcons team is playing to very close to its potential, And once again, like I said, they have the opportunity to really put this division away in record time. So Falcons top 6 here, and I think it's only going to get a little bit easier for them. Their schedule is not going to be as tough. Like I said, they still got the Panthers and the Saints are basically selling everybody. They just traded away Lattimore, and yeah, that team seems like it's dead in the water. Fired their head coach. Yeah, man. All right, next we have the team that picked up Marshawn Lattimore, and yes, the name is so big that I couldn't put the 5 in there. So I'm gonna try to change this at some point, either make it smaller or just put commies. I don't know, maybe Washington. But yeah, this is so this 5 is just hanging out here. So yeah, hopefully you can see it. But yeah, the Commanders. I mean, this team has been talked about a lot by the media, so I'll be kind of short. I don't want to make it too long. But yeah, man, they just keep winning. The teams that they've beaten have not been, I think a good chunk of them, if not most of the teams that they've beaten, have losing records. Granted, that's going to happen when you're in the NFC East. The Giants are pretty awful. The Cowboys seem to be pretty awful. But that is not your fault, and that is not the Commanders' fault. You play the teams that you do, and you still have to compete, and they have won fairly convincingly on most of those games. So if they were struggling or losing some of those games, then yeah, it would be like, yeah, this team is probably too young. They're not ready. But they're beating the teams that they should, and they are being very competitive with the teams that are a better match for them. And like I said, it's very similar to the Falcons. Outside of the Eagles, it's just between the Commanders and the Eagles. That's it. Giants are not there. The Cowboys are falling apart. They're trading for the Panthers' 4th option, and they're giving up a early day 3 pick. So, yeah, man, I think the Commanders are in a good position to compete for not only the division, but I think if they can keep on winning and if they can really beat some tough teams, I think they're going to have an outside chance at the number 2 and number 1 seed for sure. So, also that defense that was, I would say, average for the most part. I think they can get pressure. They're okay. It's just not amazing. They're better at stopping the run than getting to the quarterback. But their secondary was giving up a good amount of yards. We saw that during the Bears game. We saw that this past weekend. But they just traded for Lattimore from New Orleans, man. A potential all-pro corner that, if he stays healthy, that's a big thing with Lattimore. But if he can stay healthy and play at a high level, that's basically almost 1/2, or at least a good chunk of the field that you do not have to worry about. So your safeties are going to be able to play a little bit more center field, maybe even come down a little bit here and there to kind of cover those tight ends, running down the seams. But yeah, man, this team, it got better with the trade deadline. And it's going to be very, very interesting how that defense now plays with a potential all-pro at the cornerback position. So, yeah. Next, we got the Buffalo Bills. So, Buffalo is on a 4-game win streak. They have scored at least 30 points in their last 3 games, all victories, obviously. And ever since they traded for Amari, you can tell that Josh Allen just feels significantly less pressure to basically be the entire offense. He's trusting his guys more. His rookie Keon Coleman is coming on as a viable option, which once again very helpful. And on top of that, I'm going to talk about the running backs as a whole in just a little bit here, but I do want to highlight one running back, and that is Ray Davis. We saw what he did. I think that was against the Jets. The guy nearly went off for 100 receiving yards, and he was running the ball fairly okay. And he continued to do that this week. I think he finished with 80 yards receiving, and he was one of the top two options at running. Like Ray Davis, man, this guy is just phenomenal. And that you can clearly tell that it is helping Josh a lot. When you know you have a running back that you can either hand the ball off and he's going to get you, a decent amount of yards, but when you are going to be able to dump it down, or even actually put him in like one of those positions where he can make a decent route, and you know he's going to catch it and make yards after the catch, that's a whole lot of pressure, and that opens up your offense a lot. Because now those linebackers, those corners kind of have to worry about the flats, have to worry about the center of the field, and that's going to open up things in the back end for guys like Amari, for guys like Keon Coleman, and those tight ends as well, man. Don't forget about Dawson Knox. All those guys, man, they have a plethora of weapons who are not necessarily elite, but when you collectively can put up some decent routes and you have a quarterback of the caliber of Josh Allen, that's all you need, man. We saw it in Green Bay. We saw it with the Patriots. We've seen it all over the Chiefs. You don't need a guy that's going to be like a Devontae Adams or a Justin Jefferson to have a functioning offense. But if you can get receivers who are talented, who can specialize in certain things, and then on top of that you have a rapport with your quarterback, you can put up points and you can put up yardage. And you can put the defense in a very tough spot. So, and then talking about the defense, I think they're improving. I think I talked about this in the last power rankings. They're definitely not what they used to be, 3-4 years ago when they were one of the better, with Micah Hyde, Poyer, Tre'Davious White, and then the linebackers there, Milano, that was a big defense. That was a strong defense. They are not there. I think they're at least realistically probably 2 drafts away from where they could be with that defense, but they're going to have to invest in it. But I think this defense is good enough for being able to compete in the playoffs. It's going to be very tough with this defense against if you have to face the Chiefs or even potentially the Ravens. But when you have when you have that offense, and if that offense can be what it can be or should be, you're going to be in the game regardless. So that's the Bills at number 4. Next, we have the Baltimore Ravens. So there is a team that I always contemplate putting them higher. And it's not, obviously, it's very easy to understand why. Lamar is looking like he's going to win his 3rd MVP. We'll see how it goes. Derrick Henry, when he is on, they win. Simple as that. You look at their losses. I was going to say their 2 losses. I think they might have lost 3. I might be wrong. I don't know. But when you look at their losses, it's when Derrick Henry has just been unable to get anything going. But when him and Lamar are so, they're working together and they're able to make plays, whether it's, Derrick Henry, just making massive runs, or Lamar being able to use him in the play action. When those two are working together and they're on their game, it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing, man. And they have some good running. They have some good receivers. They have some good tight ends. But when those two are doing their thing, this offense is easily one of the elite offenses in the NFL, just on those 2 guys. You tack on the offensive line, who I think they're better at opening up gaps for the running backs than they are, pass blocking. We've seen Lamar take some shots. So that's the offense. Defensively, definitely not where they should be. They just traded for, I might be wrong, Tre'Davious White. I think that's who they traded for. I'm going to have to double check here. I'm going to do breaking down the trades, hopefully either tomorrow or, it should be tomorrow. It'll be tomorrow. Don't worry, that one will be a little bit shorter here as well. But yeah, man, the Ravens, their defense is it's gonna probably be the one thing that's gonna hold them back. And the big reason for that is of the 9 games that they have played, the defense has given up at least 21 or more points in 6 of those. Now, 21 points is not a significant amount, but that means your offense has to, they can't have an off day. You only score 2 touchdowns. Now you got to score 3 field goals. That means you have to get in position 3 more times to, that's a tough ask for any offense in the NFL, especially the way that defenses are playing them. So that defense needs to play better. Hopefully they can get it kind of tightened up a little bit here, whether it's schematically or just, the guys that they traded for. Hopefully they can make a difference. But yeah, man, this Ravens team, they may not get the number 1 seed because of Kansas City, but they're gonna be a tough team, and if they can play like they do right now, and not just fall apart in the playoffs like they have the last couple of seasons, I think they have a really good opportunity to knock off the Chiefs. And I want Lamar to win the Super Bowl, man. The guy is just one of the greatest quarterbacks that we have seen, one of the most dynamic players ever. And he seems like a guy that is just well respected by his teammates. And he's never, at least to this point, he has never thrown anybody under the bus. It's not the Aaron Rodgers thing where he's like, oh, I know I'm great, blah, 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 and this guy needs to get to my level. Lamar seems to be well loved by his teammates, and that he embraces that whole city, that whole culture of Baltimore. So hopefully the Ravens can continue to win, and Derrick Henry and him can make a run for it. All right. Next we have the Kansas City Chiefs. So Kansas City last week was my number 1. They were 7-0, and now they're 8-0, but somehow they fell. Well, one is just the team that taking the top spot here. It has really nothing to do with the Chiefs. Their offense looks as explosive as it's ever been this season. DeAndre Hopkins is starting to gel a little bit with Mahomes. And that deep route, he was throwing him a lot of balls, and he was catching them. I think the only time that him and Mahomes were not on the same page was on that quick throw to the left. DeAndre was the third receiver. He was the one closest to the line. And I think Mahomes was trying to get the first down really quickly to kind of keep the drive going, keep the clock going. And Mahomes just threw the ball really quickly, but Hopkins thought he was going to keep on going. He decided to keep on going deeper down the field. But otherwise, they were on the same page the entire freaking night. Mahomes doing Mahomes things. Even when he's injured, he somehow still throws a touchdown. Travis Kelce seems to be getting more and more touches. He seems to get a little bit better. I think it's more of the volume than anything else. I think he caught over 12 passes last night. And, yeah, this offense seems to be getting better and better, and they're only going to get healthier too. So that's going to be an issue. And then the defense has been doing what they've been doing all season, putting pressure on the quarterback, somehow getting their hands on the ball, whether it's batting them down, getting interceptions, something like that. I don't think they picked off Baker, but once again, man, this team is going to be there at the end. They're going to probably be the number 1 seed, and the Super Bowl is going to run, at least in the AFC side, it's going to run through Kansas City. So it's going to be up to some of these teams to be able to put some pressure on them, and we're going to see, man. But KC, right now, they look like a team that is just grinding away, and they're the New England Patriots. The New England Patriots, that's what they are, basically. Somehow they find a way to win. They're boring as hell, and they're just frustrating to watch if you're an opposing fan. But, yeah, number 2. All right, the next team, the number 1 team heading into Week 10 is the Carolina Panthers, man. Heck of a win. Unbelievable. Beating the Saints. Incredible. No, I'm kidding. is the Detroit Lions, of course. I said this last week, even when I put them at number 2. The Detroit Lions are the most complete team in the NFL. They're more complete than the Ravens. They are more complete than the Chiefs. But actually, I was gonna say there's no but. They're just better than most of the teams that they have clearly faced. I'm saying that as a Packer fan, which hurts. Um, even on their even on the day that they were not amazing, the offense only scored 17 points. You can clearly tell that there were some missed opportunities from them. They were still able to win against Green Bay fairly handily. They seemed like they never really losing control of that game, and they were able to really stifle a very talented Packers offense, and they were able to just do enough against a very, very talented and very good Packers defense. And they were disciplined. They were strong when they needed to be. They were able to run the ball late in that game, and they continue to not have to make mistakes here. Jared Goff, once again, just continuing to play at a high level. Is he lighting up is he throwing for 400, 500? No, he's not. He's not looking as flashy as Josh Allen, not as dynamic or as crazy as Lamar, and he's not doing those crazy, frustrating plays like Mahomes. But he is playing within the offense. He's running that thing like a machine, and it's not breaking. It doesn't need oil. It doesn't need a tune-up. They are doing what they want, and you can clearly tell from the get-go that they are well in control for any of the games that they have played. And even when they're down or even when it's getting close, they don't go outside of their identity. They don't try to do anything too crazy, except for when Dan Campbell just wants to do something crazy. But this team is methodical, and they're not boring, but they are methodical. They are non-stop putting pressure on you, whether it's defensively, offensively. This team is going to freaking play you from the first second all the way to the end. And there are certain teams that cannot handle that. Eventually, most teams are just going to break under that consistent pressure. And the Detroit Lions are the team, in my opinion, until even with the loss of Hutchinson, they have looked fairly well. Their pressures have gone down, their sacks have gone down, but they just traded for Zadarius Smith, who, if this was 5 years ago, we would be like, oh man, this guy's going to rack up, 8 or 10 sacks over the next, 8 or 9 games. But Zadarius is still a very good pass rusher, situational pass rusher, and I think he's only going to help that team. That the Lions did not get worse with that trade. So yeah, man, it's going to be very interesting what the Lions continue to do. They're not going to get Hutchinson back. That's going to be a big blow for them in their Super Bowl odds, or at least their chance. But if there's a coach that is going to be able to will his team to victories regardless of the circumstances, Dan Campbell is one of those guys, and this team is built to freaking wear you down. They're not going to care. Can't believe I just said all of that about the Lions. Oh, God, it was the worst. But it's true. It's freaking true. They built a freaking juggernaut over there in Detroit. Hats off to them, but hopefully my Packers can, I think it's like in the next 3 weeks, they're going to go up against them. So hopefully it's like last year. We lost it at home. We're going to go to their home and hopefully smack them around a little bit. But yeah, man, regardless, Detroit Lions, number 1 team in the NFL, in my opinion. Let me know what you think of these standings. Am I wrong? Who do you think should be higher? Who do you think should be lower? Who do you think should not even be on this list at all? And who did I miss? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much. If you watched any part of this, I appreciate you guys. These are so fun to make, man. Once again, these are just for fun. It's just having some fun, man. Hopefully you guys are debating. If you think I'm wrong, man, let me know. If you're like, oh, this guy's an idiot. Probably. But it's my channel, baby. But once again, thank you guys so much. This has been fun. My name is Dave, and I'm not a coach. Thank you so much.